You want to know how the Third Galactic War started? How 57 civilizations learned to fear a species that had barely crawled out of their gravity well? Let me tell you about Commander Vorth Kelnaxx and the single most catastrophic mistake in recorded galactic history. The irony, it all began with a slap. But I am getting ahead of myself. You see, we Zeltharians had ruled the Outer Rim for 3,000 cycles. We had crushed rebellions, enslaved entire star systems, and made the very mention of our Crimson Fleet send lesser species scurrying into their atmospheric holes. We were apex predators in a galaxy full of prey. Then the humans arrived. Now, you have to understand something about my people. We Zeltharians stand 12 feet tall, possess natural armor plating that can deflect plasma rounds, and our strength can crush durasteel with bare hands. When we discovered these new bipedal creatures called humans during our expansion into Sector 7 Delta, well, we laughed. Literally laughed. These pink, soft creatures barely reached our chest plates. No natural weapons, no armor, no impressive physical capabilities whatsoever. Their planet, which they called Earth, was a pathetic little rock circling a mediocre star. They had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel, making them infants compared to our millennia of technological advancement. Commander Kelnaxx, may his ancestors forget his name, was particularly amused by them. The first diplomatic meeting took place aboard our flagship, the Crimson Talon. Standard procedure. Really. New species gets invited aboard. We show them our overwhelming technological superiority. They immediately surrender and accept vassalage status. Simple. Efficient. We had done it hundreds of times. The human delegation consisted of 5 individuals, 3 males, 2 females, all dressed in their primitive fabric uniforms. The leader introduced himself as Admiral Marcus Stone. Average height for their species, brown hair graying at the temples, unremarkable in every conceivable way, the kind of creature you would step on without noticing. What should have been our first warning was how they carried themselves. These humans, these supposedly inferior beings, walked onto our warship with the casual confidence of apex predators entering familiar territory. No fear, no awe, no proper respect for their obvious superiors. Admiral Stone looked around our bridge with what I can only describe as professional interest, like a craftsman examining another craftsman's work. Not intimidation, not wonder, just evaluation. Impressive vessel, he said in accented galactic standard. Ion drive propulsion system, dual-layer energy shielding, gravitational field generators. Must have taken considerable resources to construct. The casual competence in his voice made several of our bridge crew shift uncomfortably. This was not how first contact was supposed to proceed. Commander Kelnaxx, however, remained amused. He descended from his command throne, all 12 feet of armored intimidation, and approached the human delegation. The floor plates groaned under his weight. "Welcome, little creatures," Kelnaxx rumbled, his voice designed to inspire terror. "I am Commander Vorth Kelnaxx of the Zeltharian Empire. You will address me as Supreme Commander, and you will kneel." The humans exchanged glances. Not fearful glances, calculating ones. Admiral Stone stepped forward. "I am Admiral Marcus Stone of the United Earth Defense Force. We come seeking diplomatic relations between our species." "Diplomatic relations?" Kelnaxx laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You misunderstand your position, little pink thing. We do not negotiate with inferior species. You will surrender your pathetic fleet, submit to Zeltharian rule, and provide tribute. These are not suggestions." The silence stretched uncomfortably long. The human delegation remained standing, unmoved by threats that had brought entire civilizations to their knees. "I am afraid that will not be acceptable," Admiral Stone replied calmly. What happened next changed everything. Commander Kelnaxx, in his infinite arrogance, decided to demonstrate Zeltharian superiority in the most direct way possible. He strode forward, raised his massive armored hand, and delivered what he considered a gentle corrective slap to the impudent human leader. Time seemed to slow. The metallic crack of contact echoed across the bridge. Admiral Stone's head snapped to the side, and he staggered backward 2 steps. For a moment, absolute silence. Every being on the bridge waited to see the human collapse, broken and defeated. finally understanding their place in the galactic hierarchy. Instead, Admiral Stone straightened up, touched his split lip with one finger, and examined the blood with clinical detachment. "Mistake," he said quietly. That single word carried a weight that made my scales crawl. Not anger. Not outrage. Just simple, matter-of-fact certainty. The human admiral looked at the blood on his finger, then at Commander Kelnaxx, then at the assembled bridge crew. When he smiled, every survival instinct my species had developed over millions of cycles started screaming warnings. "You just struck a representative of the United Earth Defense Force during official diplomatic proceedings," Admiral Stone continued, his voice never rising above conversational level. "This constitutes an act of war." Commander Kelnaxx laughed again. "War? You primitive mammals think you can threaten the Zeltharian Empire? Your entire species could not crew a single one of our dreadnoughts." The human admiral activated a small communication device on his wrist. "Admiral Stone to all Earth vessels. Diplomatic mission is terminated. Implement Protocol 7. "Copy that, Admiral," came the immediate response. All ships moving to combat positions. Weapons hot. The bridge erupted in confused chatter. Our sensor operators began reporting anomalous readings. Ships appearing from nowhere. Stealth technology that our sensors had not detected. "Impossible," Kelnaxx snarled. "We scanned this entire system. There were only 5 human vessels." Admiral Stone's smile widened. "You found the ones we wanted you to find." The tactical display activated, showing our fleet positions. The 5 human ships we had been tracking were still there, small and apparently harmless. But now the display showed 17 additional contacts, larger vessels, sleek and predatory, emerging from stealth fields like sharks rising from dark water. 22 ships, our sensor chief reported, his voice cracking with disbelief, all broadcasting human identification codes. Power signatures by the ancestors. Their power signatures are massive. But the truly terrifying moment came when Admiral Stone spoke again, his voice carrying across the bridge with absolute authority. "Commander Kelnaxx, you have committed an act of aggression against the United Earth Defense Force. According to Terran Military Code, Section 12, Subsection 7, any hostile action taken against official Earth representatives during diplomatic proceedings constitutes a declaration of war and justifies immediate defensive response." The human paused, touching his split lip again. "You slapped the wrong species." The communication array suddenly crackled to life. Voices in dozens of languages, all broadcasting on different frequencies. Our translation computers worked frantically to process the incoming signals. "This is Captain Sarah Kim of the UES Retribution. All civilian traffic clear the combat zone immediately. U.S. Thunderbolt standing by. Weapons systems online. Bangalore Squadron, reporting ready. Torpedo tubes loaded. Orbital bombardment platforms have acquired targets. Awaiting orders." Commander Kelnaxx stood frozen, his arrogance finally cracking as the tactical situation became clear. We had not invited a weak delegation aboard our flagship. We had allowed a reconnaissance team to walk directly into our command center. "How?" he whispered. "You assumed we were primitives," Admiral Stone replied. "You assumed wrong. We have been studying your fleet movements for 6 months. We know your ship configurations, your weapon capabilities, your tactical doctrines. We know which vessels contain your command staff and which are expendable." The tactical display updated again. The human ships were not just positioned randomly. They had formed a perfect 3-dimensional encirclement, with overlapping fields of fire covering every possible escape vector. "We also know," Admiral Stone continued, "that your shields require 17 seconds to reach full strength from standby mode. Your primary weapons have a 12-second charge cycle. Your point defense systems have 3 significant blind spots." Our shield operator looked at his console in horror. We were indeed at standby power, standard procedure during diplomatic meetings. "Shall I raise shields, Commander?" he asked. Admiral Stone checked his wrist chronometer. "I would not bother. You are already too late." The first human weapons fired. I had seen plasma bombardments before. The clean, bright destruction of energy weapons. This was different. These were kinetic projectiles, moving at significant fractions of light speed. Solid matter accelerated to devastating velocities. The first salvo struck our escort vessels. The shields, barely beginning to form, offered no resistance. Terrestrial hulls crumpled like tissue paper. Atmosphere vented in brilliant streams. 3 ships died in as many seconds. "Return fire," Kelnaxx roared. But our weapons were not charged. Our shields were not raised. Our fighters were still locked in their bays. In 30 seconds of preparation, the humans had negated every advantage we possessed. The second salvo targeted our communication array. The third took out our primary sensor cluster. They were not trying to destroy us. They were methodically dismantling our ability to coordinate, to see, to call for help. Surgical. Precise. Professional. "This is impossible," Kelnaxx repeated, staring at the tactical display showing the systematic destruction of his fleet. No species achieves this level of tactical sophistication so quickly after achieving spaceflight. Admiral Stone wiped the blood from his lip and examined it again. "Commander, you have made several critical errors in judgment. First, you assumed that because we recently achieved faster-than-light travel, we are inexperienced in warfare. This was incorrect. We have been perfecting the art of killing each other for our entire recorded history." A human ship designated UES Fury positioned itself directly in front of our bridge viewports. Its weapons arrays were trained on our command center. "Second," the Admiral continued, "you assumed that because we appear physically inferior, we are strategically inferior. Also incorrect. Physical weakness teaches innovation. We learned to kill creatures larger and stronger than ourselves using tools, tactics, and intelligence." The bridge crew stood paralyzed, watching our fleet die around us. "Third and most importantly, you assumed that slapping me would demonstrate your superiority. Instead, you have provided legal justification for everything that follows." Commander Kelnaxx, his arrogance finally shattered, stared at the human admiral with something approaching respect and terror. "What do you want?" he asked. Admiral Stone's smile turned predatory. "Justice." The communication system activated again. A new voice, cold and professional. "This is Captain Reynolds of the UES Nemesis. Admiral Stone, we have disabled their primary fleet. Casualties minimal on our side. Zeltharian losses, significant." "Copy that, Captain Reynolds. Phase 2 is authorized." "Phase 2? Kelnaxx whispered. "Oh yes," Admiral Stone replied. "We are just getting started." The tactical display updated one final time. New contacts appeared on the edges of the system. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Entire battle fleet emerging from faster-than-light travel, their engines still glowing with transition energy. "The diplomatic mission was never about negotiation, Commander," Admiral Stone explained as ships continued materializing. "It was about confirming our intelligence estimates regarding your fleet capabilities. Thank you for your cooperation." Kelnaxx realized, with growing horror, that they had been manipulated from the beginning. The humans had not stumbled into first contact. They had engineered it. "You planned this," he accused. "Of course we planned this. We have been planning this since we detected your first probe ship in our outer system 8 months ago. Did you really think we would not notice a massive alien vessel conducting reconnaissance sweeps of our planets?" The full scope of human deception became clear. They had allowed themselves to be discovered. They had controlled every aspect of first contact. They had maneuvered the Zeltharian Empire into exactly the position they wanted, and Commander Kelnaxx had provided them with perfect justification for what came next. "Surrender," Admiral Stone commanded. "Power down your weapons. Drop your shields and prepare to be boarded. You will be treated according to the Terran conventions of warfare, which is considerably more mercy than your empire has shown its conquered peoples." The irony was suffocating. The mighty Zeltharian Empire, conquerors of 57 worlds, brought to their knees by a species that had not even left their home system until recently. Commander Kelnaxx looked around his bridge, at his crew, at the burning wreckage of his once proud fleet. Pride warred with survival instinct. He chose poorly. "Never," he snarled, reaching for the manual weapons override. "No inferior species commands a Zeltharian warrior. What happened next would be recorded in every military academy in the galaxy as a perfect example of how quickly tactical situations can deteriorate. Admiral Stone did not even appear to move. One moment he was standing calmly near the viewports. The next moment, Commander Kelnaxx was on the deck, his massive armored form crumpled like discarded scrap metal. I blinked. My mind refused to process what my eyes had witnessed. The 12-foot-tall armored apex predator, who had terrorized the Outer Rim for decades, was unconscious on his own bridge, felled by a creature half his size and apparently possessing no natural weapons. Admiral Stone stood over the fallen commander completely calm, adjusting his uniform tunic. Human combat training, he explained to the shocked bridge crew, includes extensive study of anatomy, pressure points, and combat techniques designed to neutralize larger opponents. We call it martial arts. He looked down at the unconscious Kelnaxx with something approaching pity. Your commander chose violence against a diplomatic envoy. He chose poorly. The silence on the bridge was absolute. Every Zeltharian present stared at their fallen leader, their worldview crumbling around them. A new voice crackled over the communications system. Human, female, coldly professional. Admiral Stone, this is Captain Martinez aboard the UES Retribution. We are detecting weapons charging aboard the flagship. Shall we disable their primary systems? Admiral Stone activated his wrist communicator. Negative, Captain Martinez. The situation aboard the flagship is under control. He looked around the bridge, making eye contact with each member of the stunned crew. However, please prepare boarding parties. We will be taking this vessel as evidence of unprovoked aggression against Earth diplomatic personnel. The scope of the disaster was becoming clear. Not only had the humans destroyed our fleet, but they intended to capture our flagship and its classified technology. But the real horror was yet to come. Commander Kelnaxx stirred, regaining consciousness. He struggled to his feet, disoriented and humiliated. When he saw Admiral Stone standing calmly nearby, rage consumed whatever intelligence remained. Impossible, he roared. No soft-skinned mammal defeats a Zeltharian warrior in personal combat. He reached for his sidearm. It was the last decision he would ever make. Admiral Stone moved with inhuman speed, crossing the distance between them in a heartbeat. There was a flash of silver, a sound like breaking crystal, and suddenly Commander Kelnaxx stopped moving entirely. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of life support systems. Commander Vorth Kelnaxx, Terror of the Outer Rim, Conqueror of Worlds, Supreme Commander of the 7th Fleet, stood perfectly still for exactly 3 seconds. Then his head fell off. It hit the deck with a wet thud and rolled to a stop against a bulkhead, eyes still wide with surprise. Admiral Stone stood where Kelnaxx had been, holding a small ceramic blade that had appeared from nowhere and would vanish just as quickly. Blood dripped from its edge. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Anyone else? Admiral Stone asked politely. No one moved. No one spoke. No one even breathed. The Admiral wiped his blade clean on a piece of cloth from his pocket, and the weapon disappeared back into whatever concealment had produced it. Excellent, he said. Now, as I was saying, you will surrender this vessel immediately. Failure to comply will result in immediate termination of all crew members. The bridge crew looked at their headless commander, then at the small, soft creature who had killed him with casual efficiency. Every single Zeltharian dropped to their knees. And that, my friends, was how the Third Galactic War began. With a slap, a smile, and the severed head of the most feared military commander in the Outer Rim. But this was only the beginning. What happened next would reshape the balance of power across 57 star systems and teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The humans were not prey. They were apex predators who had been pretending to be harmless. And now, thanks to Commander Kelnaxx's fatal arrogance, they were no longer pretending. The aftermath of Commander Kelnaxx's execution was, to put it mildly, complicated. You see, when the most feared military commander in the Outer Rim loses his head to a creature he could have crushed with one hand, it tends to generate what you might call a crisis of confidence. The bridge crew of the Crimson Talon, myself included, knelt before Admiral Stone with the sudden realization that everything we thought we knew about the galactic hierarchy had just been violently corrected. The human admiral surveyed his new subjects with professional satisfaction. "Navigation officer," he said calmly. "Plot a course for the Zultharian home system. Communications, broadcast our surrender terms to the surviving fleet." Our navigation officer, a young female named Zara, looked up from her kneeling position with undisguised terror. "Sir, we cannot simply navigate to the home system. The hyperspace routes are classified, and the defensive networks would destroy any unauthorized approach." Admiral Stone smiled that predatory smile again, the one that made my survival instincts scream warnings. "Officer Zara, is it?" he asked, reading her name from her uniform insignia. "Appreciate your concern for security protocols. However, you seem to be operating under the mistaken assumption that this information is still classified." He activated a holographic display from his wrist device. Star charts appeared in the air above us, showing hyperspace routes, defensive positions, fleet deployments, and military installations throughout Zultharian space. Complete intelligence maps of our entire empire. "How?" Zara whispered, staring at classified information that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. "Trade networks," Admiral Stone replied matter-of-factly. "Amazing what merchants will tell you when they think you are just another primitive species interested in buying their goods. We have been cataloging your military positions for 8 months. The scope of human infiltration became clear. While we had been dismissing them as irrelevant newcomers, they had been systematically gathering intelligence on every major power in the galaxy. They had not stumbled into first contact. They had planned and prepared for war. "Set course for Zelfara Prime," Admiral Stone commanded. "Maximum speed." "Sir?" I found myself saying, surprising everyone including myself. "You do realize that Zelfara Prime is defended by the First Home Fleet. 12 dreadnoughts, 47 heavy cruisers, and orbital defense platforms that could incinerate entire moons?" The human admiral turned his attention to me. "And you are?" "Senior Tactical Officer Crix Valthan, sir," I replied, maintaining the kneeling position that had suddenly become very important for survival. "Officer Valthan, thank you for that intelligence update. Yes, we are aware of the First Home Fleet. We are also aware of Fleet Admiral Morgath, Kelnaxx, Commander Kelnaxx's older brother, who will undoubtedly be interested in learning about his sibling's fate." The mention of Fleet Admiral Morgath sent ice through my veins. If Kelnaxx had been feared, Morgath was legendary. He had personally led the conquest of 19 star systems. His tactical brilliance was matched only by his legendary cruelty. "You intend to face the First Home Fleet with 22 ships?" I asked, unable to hide my disbelief. 22 ships that you can see," Admiral Stone corrected. "Officer Valthan, let me share something about human military doctrine. We believe in redundancy, misdirection, and overwhelming force applied at precisely the right moment." He activated his communicator again. "All Earth vessels, this is Admiral Stone. Execute Phase 3. The tactical display lit up like a festival celebration. New contacts appeared throughout the Zultharian home system. Not dozens this time. Hundreds. "How many ships do you have?" Zara asked in a voice barely above a whisper. "Enough," Admiral Stone replied. But the true horror was still coming. Because what happened next would prove that humans did not simply plan for war. They planned for the complete restructuring of galactic civilization. 3 hours later, as we traveled through hyperspace toward what I assumed would be my death, the first reports began arriving. Simultaneous attacks across 17 star systems. Human fleets emerging from stealth fields and hyperspace jumps with perfect coordination. Military installations destroyed. Defense platforms eliminated. Zultharian forces caught completely unprepared. It was not random violence. It was surgical decapitation of our entire military infrastructure. "This is Admiral Beth Walker of the Second Earth Fleet," came one transmission. "Zultharian orbital shipyards at Kepler 7 have been neutralized, proceeding to secondary targets. Third Fleet reporting successful completion of objectives at Zulthara Minor. Zultharian garrison forces have surrendered. Fourth Fleet has secured the mining facilities at Rigel 9. Minimal resistance encountered." Admiral Stone listened to these reports with the satisfaction of a craftsman reviewing completed work. Each transmission represented the systematic dismantling of an empire that had dominated the Outer Rim for millennia. "You planned this entire war," I said, finally understanding the scope of human preparation. "Officer Valthan, we planned for the possibility of war the moment we detected your first scout ship," Admiral Stone replied. "We hoped for peaceful coexistence. We prepared for armed conflict. Your commander chose which outcome we would pursue." The communication system crackled again. This time, the voice was unmistakably Zeltharian, unmistakably furious. "Human vessels, this is Fleet Admiral Morgath Kelnaxx of the First Home Fleet. You have attacked Zeltharian territory and murdered my brother. Surrender immediately, or face total annihilation." Admiral Stone activated his response channel with obvious satisfaction. "Fleet Admiral Morgath, this is Admiral Marcus Stone of the United Earth Defense Force. Your brother committed an unprovoked assault on a diplomatic envoy during official negotiations. His death was justified under Terran military code and galactic conventions regarding the treatment of diplomatic personnel." The silence lasted exactly 7 seconds. "You killed Kelnaxx." Morgath's voice carried a mixture of disbelief and rage that made the bridge atmosphere feel dangerous. "I executed him for assault on a diplomatic representative and attempted murder of surrendered personnel," Admiral Stone replied calmly. "The entire incident was recorded and will be transmitted to the Galactic Council as evidence of Zeltharian aggression." What followed was a string of Zeltharian curses that would have impressed a Regillian pirate. When Morgath finally regained control of his voice, the threats he made were creative, detailed, and anatomically challenging. Admiral Stone listened patiently until the tirade ended. "Are you finished, Fleet Admiral?" he asked politely. "You will pay for this insult with your miserable lives," Morgath snarled. "The First Home Fleet will reduce your pathetic vessels to component atoms." "Fleet Admiral Morgath, I should inform you that you are outnumbered approximately 4-1, outgunned by a significant margin, and facing an enemy that has been studying your tactical doctrines for months. I strongly recommend surrender." "Surrender?" Morgath laughed. A sound like grinding stone. "No human coward tells a Zeltharian warrior to surrender. We will show you why our empire spans 57 worlds." "Very well," Admiral Stone replied. "Consider this your final warning. Any hostile action taken against Earth forces will result in the complete destruction of your fleet and the military occupation of Zelthara Prime." The transmission cut to static. "He will not surrender," I told Admiral Stone. "Morgath would rather die than submit to what he considers an inferior species." "I was counting on that," the human replied. 37 minutes later, we dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zelthara system. The sight that greeted us defied comprehension. The First Home Fleet was indeed massive. 12 dreadnoughts that each outmassed human vessels by factors of 10. Heavy cruisers bristling with enough firepower to crack planets. Orbital defense platforms positioned around Zelthara Prime like protective jewels, but surrounding them, emerging from stealth fields and hyperspace jumps with perfect timing, was the largest military fleet I had ever seen. Human ships filled the tactical display, sleek predators designed for speed and firepower. Massive carriers launching swarms of fighters. Artillery vessels that looked purpose-built for long-range bombardment. "How many?" Zara whispered, staring at the display. 837 combat vessels," our sensor operator reported in a voice cracking with disbelief, "plus support ships, logistics vessels, and command platforms." Admiral Stone activated the general communication channel. "Fleet Admiral Morgath, this is your final opportunity to surrender. Power down your weapons, drop your shields, and prepare to be boarded." The response was immediate and predictable. "All Zeltharian vessels, open fire. Show these mammals what happens when they threaten the Empire." The First Home Fleet charged. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Human ships moved with inhuman precision, their formations flowing like liquid metal. They did not meet the Zeltharian charge head-on. Instead, they flowed around it, concentrating firepower on isolated vessels, while avoiding the main strength of our attack. The first Zeltharian dreadnought died within 90 seconds. Kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds punched through its shields like they were decorative lights. The massive vessel broke apart in a cascade of explosions that lit up the system like a new star. Impossible, breathed our sensor operator. Nothing can penetrate Mark 7 shields that quickly. Kinetic energy scales with the square of velocity, Admiral Stone explained helpfully. Accelerate a projectile to sufficient speed, and no shield can stop it. The second dreadnought lasted 2 minutes longer. The third managed 3 minutes before human fighters swarmed over it like angry insects, their weapons finding every weak point in its armor. Fleet Admiral Morgath, commanding from the flagship Zeltharian Glory, finally seemed to grasp the hopelessness of his situation. All vessels, implement defensive formation Sigma, he ordered. Concentrate fire on their command ships. It was a sound tactical decision. Under normal circumstances, it might have worked. But these were not normal circumstances. These were humans who had been planning this engagement for months. The moment Morgath's fleet formed up in defensive posture, human artillery vessels opened fire from extreme range. Not at the ships, but at the spaces between them. The projectiles, I realized with growing horror, were not conventional weapons. They were gravity bombs. The detonations created localized gravitational anomalies that pulled the tightly formed Zeltharian vessels together, crushing shields and armor as ships collided with irresistible force. "What kind of monsters are you?" I asked Admiral Stone, watching our once mighty fleet tear itself apart. "The kind that learns," he replied. "We studied your defensive formations. We developed countermeasures. We tested them in simulation until we achieved 97% efficiency." Fleet Admiral Morgath, his flagship listing and bleeding atmosphere, made one final desperate transmission. "Human Commander, I formally surrender the first home fleet. Ceasefire. Please, ceasefire." The human weapons fell silent immediately. "Fleet Admiral Morgath, this is Admiral Stone. Your surrender is accepted. Power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Medical assistance will be provided to your wounded." The contrast was stark. Moments before, these humans had been systematically destroying our fleet with terrifying efficiency. Now they offered medical aid to their defeated enemies. "I do not understand your species," I told Admiral Stone. "Officer Valthan, humans believe in the concept of honorable warfare. We fight to win, but we do not fight to commit genocide. Your people will be treated according to the Terran conventions of warfare, which guarantee medical treatment, proper food, and humane conditions for prisoners." He paused, watching the surrender of the most powerful fleet in the Zeltharian Empire. "However, the political structure that enabled your empire's aggression against peaceful species will be restructured." Over the following hours, as human boarding parties took control of surrendered vessels, the scope of their planning became clear. They had not simply prepared for military victory. They had prepared for the complete transformation of galactic politics. The first transmission came from the Galactic Council. "Human representatives, this is Council Speaker Raven Tornax. We have received your evidence of Zeltharian aggression against diplomatic personnel. The Council recognizes Earth's right to defensive action under Article 7 of the Galactic Peace Accords." Admiral Stone smiled grimly. "Council Speaker Tornax, Earth appreciates the Council's recognition. However, we must inform you that we are not seeking limited defensive action. We are pursuing complete restructuring of political authority in the former Zeltharian Empire territories. That is not within the Council's authority to approve," the Speaker replied nervously. "With respect, Council Speaker, we are not asking for approval. We are informing you of our intentions. The Zeltharian Empire enslaved 17 different species, committed genocide against the Axthari civilization, and maintained their power through systematic terrorism. That ends now." The silence from the Galactic Council suggested they were finally beginning to understand what had just happened. A species that had achieved faster-than-light travel only recently had just conquered the most powerful military force in the galaxy. But the humans were not finished. "Furthermore," Admiral Stone continued, "Earth is hereby claiming administrative authority over all former Zeltharian territories until stable democratic governments can be established for each enslaved species. You cannot simply reshape the galaxy according to your preferences," Council Speaker Tornax protested. "Council Speaker, With respect, we have 837 combat vessels currently demonstrating that we can indeed reshape the galaxy according to our preferences. The question is whether other species wish to cooperate with this process or oppose it. The threat was implicit but unmistakable. The humans had just proven they could destroy any military force in the galaxy. They were now offering other species a choice: cooperation or conquest. The first response came from an unexpected source: human vessels. This is Ambassador Kelnaxx of the Axtheri Resistance. We have monitored your actions against the Zeltharian Empire. The Axtheri people formally request Earth protection and alliance. More transmissions followed. The Regillian Federation, the Centauri Republic, the Vegan Trade Confederation. Species that had lived in terror of Zeltharian retaliation for centuries were suddenly offering alliance with the humans who had proven they could provide protection. Admiral Stone accepted each offer with the same professional courtesy. Ambassador Nexthaven, Earth accepts the Axtheri request for alliance. We will provide immediate military protection and assistance in establishing stable government on your home worlds. As I watched this transformation of galactic politics unfold in real time, one question dominated my thoughts. Admiral Stone, I asked, how long have you been planning this? He considered the question seriously. Officer Velthin, human governments began contingency planning for contact with hostile alien civilizations approximately 200 years before we achieved faster-than-light travel. We have been refining these plans continuously ever since. 200 years? I stared at him in disbelief. Humans plan for every possibility, Officer Velthin. We hoped for peaceful contact with benevolent species. We prepared for war with aggressive empires. We developed strategies for everything from trade negotiations to planetary conquest. The scope of human preparation was staggering. They had not stumbled into galactic civilization. They had arrived ready for any contingency. But why? I asked. Why prepare so extensively for something that might never happen? Admiral Stone's expression grew serious. Because, Officer Velthin, we learned long ago that hope for the best is not a survival strategy. Our history is filled with civilizations that were destroyed because they failed to prepare for conflict. We decided that would never happen to humanity. A new transmission interrupted our conversation. Admiral Stone, this is Captain Rodriguez aboard the UES Vengeance. Long-range sensors are at Tate Fleet movements in the Draconian sector. Approximately 200 vessels moving toward our position. Identification? Admiral Stone asked. Mixed fleet composition. Zeltharian stragglers, Regillian pirates, some unidentified vessels. Appears to be a coalition forming against our operations. Admiral Stone nodded, as if he had been expecting this development. Captain Rodriguez, implement Contingency Plan Delta. All fleet commanders are authorized to engage any hostile vessels approaching Earth-controlled territory. Copy that, Admiral. Contingency Plan Delta is active. I realized with growing dread that the humans had planned for this too. They had anticipated that other species would attempt to exploit the chaos following Zeltharian defeat. How many contingency plans do you have? I asked. Currently active. Approximately 47. Admiral Stone replied casually. We update them regularly based on changing tactical situations. The communication system activated again. This time the voice belonged to someone I recognized with cold terror. Human vessels, this is Supreme Admiral Drax Vorthak of the Draconian Empire. You have upset the balance of power in this galaxy. We cannot allow your expansion to continue. Admiral Stone's smile returned. The predatory one that meant someone was about to die horribly. Supreme Admiral Drax, this is Admiral Stone. Your empire has consistently engaged in piracy, slavery, and aggressive expansion against peaceful species. Earth formally considers the Draconian Empire a hostile force. You dare threaten the Draconian Empire? Drax roared. We have conquered civilizations across 17 galaxies. Your pathetic species will be ground beneath our claws. Supreme Admiral, I feel obligated to point out that you are currently approaching Earth territory with hostile intent. Under the Terran Military Code, this constitutes an act of war. Admiral Stone paused, his expression becoming almost sympathetic. Also, Supreme Admiral, your intelligence regarding human capabilities appears to be approximately 8 months out of date. The tactical display updated, showing new contacts emerging throughout the system. More human fleets, appearing as if from nowhere. You see, Supreme Admiral, while you were forming your coalition against us, we were preparing for exactly this contingency. The scope of human fleet strength became clear. They had not committed their entire force to conquering the Zeltharian Empire. They had held massive reserves in preparation for exactly this scenario. Impossible, Drax whispered. Our intelligence reports indicated you possessed only minimal fleet strength. Your intelligence was observing our patrol vessels and training squadrons, Admiral Stone replied helpfully. The actual Earth Defense Force is considerably larger. How much larger? Drax asked, though his voice suggested he already suspected the answer would be unpleasant. Sufficient for our needs, Supreme Admiral. The Draconian Coalition dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, expecting to face a weakened human force that had exhausted itself conquering the Zeltharians. Instead, they found themselves facing the largest military armada in galactic history. 3,000 human warships arranged in perfect battle formation, their weapons already trained on the approaching coalition forces. The silence lasted exactly 11 seconds. Then Supreme Admiral Drax spoke again, his voice considerably smaller than before. Admiral Stone, the Draconian Empire, would like to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence. Admiral Stone chuckled, a sound that somehow managed to be both amused and terrifying. Supreme Admiral Drax, I am afraid the time for negotiation has passed. You approached Earth territory with hostile intent. You declared war on our species. Under the Terran Military Code, we are now authorized to pursue complete military victory. But surely you do not intend to conquer the entire galaxy? Drax asked desperately. Supreme Admiral, we intend to establish a galactic civilization based on principles of peaceful cooperation, democratic governance, and respect for individual rights. Species that embrace these principles will find humans to be generous allies. Species that oppose them will find us to be efficient conquerors. The choice was stark and simple. Join the new galactic order or be destroyed by it. All coalition vessels, Drax announced over the general communication channel, stand down weapons and prepare to surrender. We formally surrender to Earth forces. And just like that, the Third Galactic War ended. 2 major galactic empires, destroyed or surrendered within a single day. The political structure that had defined interstellar relations for millennia, shattered by a species that most civilizations had never heard of. As I watched human boarding parties take control of surrendered vessels throughout the system, one thought dominated my mind. The galaxy would never be the same. But perhaps I realized as I watched human medical teams treating wounded Zeltharian prisoners with the same care they gave their own wounded. That was not necessarily a bad thing. 6 months later, I stood in what had once been the throne room of the Zeltharian Imperial Palace, watching humans transform the galaxy with the same methodical efficiency they had used to conquer it. The irony was not lost on me. The palace where Zeltharian emperors had ruled through fear and violence for 3,000 cycles was now the headquarters of something called the Galactic Reconstruction Authority. Instead of tribute payments and slavery quotas, the massive holographic displays showed infrastructure projects, medical shipments, and educational programs. Officer Valthan, Admiral Stone approached, carrying what appeared to be a stack of data tablets. 6 months of working with humans had taught me to recognize their constant need for documentation and record-keeping. I wanted to discuss your new assignment. My new assignment. The concept still felt surreal. 3 days after the surrender at Zelthara Prime, Admiral Stone had offered me a position with the Earth Defense Force, not as a prisoner or a forced conscript, but as a voluntary member of their intelligence division. The offer had been as shocking as everything else about these humans. Sir, I replied, still maintaining the formal address that had become habit. What does Earth require of me? We require your expertise in Zeltharian military doctrine and your knowledge of former Imperial territory, Admiral Stone replied. But more importantly, we require your perspective as someone who understands both the old system and the new one we are building. He activated one of the data tablets, showing a star chart that I recognized as the former Draconian Empire territory. The Draconians have been cooperative since their surrender, but we suspect some of their military commanders are organizing resistance movements in the outer sectors. We need someone who understands how former Imperial officers think. I studied the chart, noting the marked locations where human intelligence had detected suspicious activity. The pattern was familiar, classic insurgency tactics that desperate military commanders often employed when facing superior occupation forces. Admiral, these positions suggest they are planning coordinated strikes against your supply lines, I observed. Standard doctrine for weakening an occupying force. Agreed. What would you recommend? The question caught me off guard. 6 months ago, I had been an enemy officer plotting humanity's destruction. Now this human admiral was asking for my tactical advice as if my opinion mattered. Sir, if I may ask, why do you trust my judgment? I was part of the system you destroyed. Admiral Stone set down his data tablet and fixed me with that direct stare that humans used when they wanted to make important points. Officer Valthan, you were following orders within a military structure that you inherited, not one you created. More importantly, when that structure collapsed, you chose cooperation over continued resistance. That suggests intelligence and adaptability. He gestured toward the holographic displays showing reconstruction efforts across the former empire. We are not interested in punishing individuals for the crimes of their governments. We are interested in building something better. The scope of human reconstruction efforts was staggering. On worlds where Zeltharian rule had imposed brutal slavery, human engineers were building schools and hospitals. On planets stripped of resources by imperial extraction policies, Earth agricultural specialists were restoring damaged ecosystems. But the most remarkable transformation was happening among the people themselves. Admiral, I have a question that has been troubling me, I said, watching the displays update with reports from dozens of worlds. Why are you doing this? You have achieved total military victory. You could impose any terms you desired. Why invest so heavily in helping your former enemies? Admiral Stone smiled, though this time it was not the predatory expression I had learned to fear. This was something else. Something almost paternal. Officer Valthan, let me tell you about human history. Our species spent thousands of years making the same mistakes your empire made. We conquered, enslaved, and oppressed each other in cycles of violence that nearly destroyed our civilization multiple times. He activated another display showing images from Earth's history. Battlefields, destroyed cities, monuments to the dead. We learned, eventually, that conquest without reconstruction creates more enemies than it eliminates. That oppression breeds resistance. That sustainable peace requires justice, not just victory. The human paused, studying the images of their own bloody past. We also learned that former enemies often make the most valuable allies because they understand the costs of conflict. A new voice interrupted our conversation. Admiral Stone, incoming priority transmission from Earth Central Command. Put it through, Lieutenant, Admiral Stone replied. The holographic display activated, showing a human female in what I had learned was the uniform of Earth's highest military authority. General Elizabeth Kane, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces. Admiral Stone, congratulations on the completion of Phase 4 reconstruction objectives. General Kane said. I am transmitting new deployment orders for the 5th Fleet. Understood, General. Are we expanding operations into the Andorian sector? Negative, Admiral. We are pulling back from military expansion operations. The Galactic Council has formally requested Earth assistance in mediating the civil war in the Proxima system. I blinked in surprise. The Proxima system was on the opposite side of the galaxy from former Zeltharian territory. If humans were being asked to intervene there, it meant their reputation had spread far beyond their direct area of operations. Mediation, General? Admiral Stone asked. Not military intervention? Correct, Admiral. The Council specifically requested diplomatic mediation. Apparently, word has spread about our reconstruction efforts, and both sides in the Proxima conflict have requested Earth arbitration. Admiral Stone nodded thoughtfully. I will deploy diplomatic teams immediately. What about the remaining resistance cells in Draconian territory? Intelligence reports suggest most organized resistance has collapsed. The former draconian military commanders seemed to have accepted integration into local defense forces. After the transmission ended, Admiral Stone turned back to me with an expression of satisfaction. "Officer Valthan, do you understand what just happened?" "Sir, the Galactic Council is treating Earth as a legitimate mediating authority rather than a conquering force," I replied. "Precisely. 6 months ago, most galactic civilizations had never heard of humanity. Now they are voluntarily requesting our assistance in resolving conflicts." The transformation was indeed remarkable. Through a combination of overwhelming military capability and surprisingly enlightened reconstruction policies, humans had managed to position themselves as the galaxy's preferred peacekeeping force. But the real test of human intentions came 3 hours later, when we received an emergency transmission from the Outer Rim territories. "All Earth vessels. This is Captain Sarah Kim aboard the UES Retribution. We have a situation developing in the Tau Ceti system. Unknown vessels are attacking civilian transports." Admiral Stone activated the command center immediately. "Captain Kim, identification on the attacking vessels?" "Negative identification, Admiral. Ships are using advanced stealth technology and weapon signatures we do not recognize. Definitely not any known galactic civilization." The tactical display showed the Tau Ceti system, with civilian transport routes marked in blue and unknown hostile contacts marked in red. The pattern of attacks suggested systematic piracy rather than random violence. "Sir," I said, studying the display, "those attack patterns are consistent with extragalactic raiders, ships from outside our galaxy, using technology we have never encountered." Admiral Stone's expression grew grim. "Captain Kim, are you detecting any communication attempts from the unknown vessels?" "Negative, Admiral. They are not responding to any hails. They appear to be targeting civilian vessels for capture rather than destruction." "Slavers," Admiral Stone said quietly. "Extragalactic slavers." The implications were chilling. If hostile forces from outside the galaxy were beginning raids into human-protected territory, it meant the reconstruction efforts could be threatened by enemies that had not been part of the original war. "Admiral," I said, "this could be the first probe by a much larger force. If these raiders report back that our galaxy contains valuable resources and vulnerable populations, they will return in greater numbers," Admiral Stone finished. "Captain Kim, engage the hostile vessels immediately. Priority is protecting civilian ships, but I want at least one raider captured for intelligence purposes." "Copy that, Admiral. Moving to intercept." What followed was a brief but intense engagement as human ships moved to protect the civilian transports. The unknown raiders fought with advanced technology, but they had not anticipated facing military vessels designed specifically for rapid response to unexpected threats. "Admiral Stone, this is Captain Kim. We have successfully driven off the raiders and captured one of their vessels. The crew appears to be from a species we have never encountered." "Excellent work, Captain. Begin interrogation procedures and transmit all intelligence to Fleet Command." As the tactical situation stabilized, Admiral Stone turned to address the broader implications. "Officer Valthan, this incident demonstrates why our reconstruction efforts are so important. A galaxy divided by internal conflicts cannot defend itself against external threats. The human activated a galactic communication array, broadcasting on all major diplomatic channels. This is Admiral Marcus Stone of the United Earth Defense Force, broadcasting to all galactic civilizations. Our forces have just repelled raiders from outside our galaxy who were conducting slaving operations against civilian populations. This represents a potential threat to all intelligent species in our galaxy." The response was immediate and universal. Within minutes, transmissions began arriving from dozens of civilizations offering support, intelligence, and cooperation. "Admiral Stone, this is Ambassador Kelnaxx of the Axthari Alliance. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected similar incursions in the Outer Rim. We offer our full cooperation in addressing this threat." "Earth vessels, this is Council Speaker Raven Tornax. The Galactic Council formally requests Earth leadership in coordinating our response to this external threat." Admiral Stone accepted each offer with the same professional courtesy, but I could see the satisfaction in his expression. In 6 months, humans had transformed themselves from unknown newcomers to the galaxy's acknowledged protectors. "Sir," I said, You planned for this too, did you not? Officer Valthan, we planned for the possibility of external threats.
Yes.
Our long-term strategic planning includes scenarios for extragalactic invasion, interdimensional incursions, and first contact with hostile machine intelligences. The scope of human preparation was, as always, staggering. They had not simply planned to conquer existing galactic civilizations. They had planned to defend the galaxy itself against threats that might not even exist yet. How far ahead do humans plan? I asked. Currently, our strategic planning extends approximately 500 years into the future. Admiral Stone replied casually. We update and revise these plans continuously based on new information and changing circumstances. 500 years. Most galactic civilizations struggled to plan effectively beyond a single decade. Humans were preparing for challenges that would not emerge for centuries. A new transmission interrupted my amazement. Admiral Stone, this is Dr. Elena Vasquez aboard the research vessel UES Discovery. We have completed our preliminary analysis of the captured raider vessel. Report, Doctor. Sir, the technology is definitely extragalactic in origin, but it shows signs of significant technological degradation. These appear to be refugees or exiles rather than advanced scouts for a major invasion force. Refugees? Yes, sir. Their ship shows evidence of hasty construction using salvaged materials. Their weapons are improvised rather than purpose-built. Most importantly, we found star charts in their navigation system that suggest they have been traveling for several centuries. The tactical situation suddenly became much more complex. If these were refugees rather than invaders, the appropriate response was very different. Dr. Vasquez, what is the crew's condition? Malnourished, suffering from radiation exposure, and showing signs of prolonged space travel. Sir, I recommend we consider offering humanitarian assistance rather than treating them as hostile prisoners. Admiral Stone considered this information carefully. Doctor, implement medical assistance protocols. Treat their injuries and provide basic necessities, but maintain security precautions until we can establish their intentions. Understood, Admiral. I watched this exchange with growing comprehension of how humans approached complex situations. They had responded to an apparent threat with appropriate force, but they were equally prepared to offer assistance if the threat proved to be a humanitarian crisis. Admiral, I said, your species adapts very quickly to changing circumstances. Officer Valthan, adaptability is humanity's greatest survival trait. We plan extensively, but we also remain flexible enough to change our approach when new information becomes available. 3 days later, we learned the full story from the captured refugees. Their species, the Kithrani, had fled their home galaxy when it was consumed by what they described as the Great Devourers. Machine intelligences that converted all organic matter into resources for their expansion. The Kithrani had been traveling for over 2 centuries, searching for a new home. Admiral Stone, Dr. Vasquez reported, they were conducting raids because they believed our galaxy was uninhabited. Their long-range sensors showed scattered settlements that they assumed were abandoned ruins. Have you explained the actual political situation to them? Yes, sir. They are rather shocked to learn that they attacked civilian vessels under the protection of a galactic peacekeeping force. Admiral Stone made a decision that surprised no one who had been watching human behavior for the past 6 months. Doctor, inform the Kithrani that Earth formally offers them refugee status and assistance in establishing new settlements and uninhabited systems within our territory. Sir, some of the fleet commanders are concerned about offering territory to former raiders, came a transmission from Captain Martinez. Captain Martinez, these beings have been traveling through space for 2 centuries after watching their entire civilization consumed by hostile machines. They deserve compassion, not punishment. The decision to offer assistance to the Kithrani refugees became another demonstration of human strategic thinking. Within weeks, the grateful refugees were sharing their knowledge of extragalactic threats and their advanced sensor technology that could detect machine intelligence activity across vast distances. The Kithrani integration also served as a powerful symbol to other galactic civilizations. Humans were not simply conquerors who happened to be benevolent to existing populations. They were actively welcoming new species and offering them protection and opportunity. But the most significant development came 6 weeks later, when long-range sensors detected the approach of something that dwarfed all previous threats. Admiral Stone, this is Commander Torres aboard the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Wolf 359. Sir, we are detecting massive gravitational anomalies approaching from the galactic rim. Whatever is coming, it is larger than anything in our database. The tactical display updated with sensor readings that made my scales crawl with primal terror. Something vast was approaching the galaxy. Something that distorted space-time itself with its presence. Size estimates? Admiral Stone asked calmly. Sir, initial estimates suggest the object is approximately the size of a small moon. But Admiral, it is not moving according to any known laws of physics. It appears to be folding space around itself. Admiral Stone activated the emergency communication array. All Earth vessels, all Allied fleets. This is Admiral Stone. We have detected the approach of an unknown object of unprecedented size. All ships are to implement Defense Protocol Omega immediately. Admiral, I said, Defense Protocol Omega. I am not familiar with that designation. Officer Valthan, Defense Protocol Omega is our contingency plan for threats that exceed all previous parameters. Essentially, it means we prepare for the possibility that everything we have built might need to be defended against something we have never encountered before. The scope of human preparation was revealed once again. They had not simply planned for known threats. They had planned for unknowable threats. Over the following hours, as the unknown object continued its approach, the true extent of human military capability became visible. Ships emerged from hidden bases, advanced weapon platforms activated in deep space, and defensive installations that had been constructed in secret began broadcasting their positions. The galaxy that 6 months earlier had been divided by competing empires was now united under human coordination, preparing to face whatever was approaching from the darkness between galaxies. Admiral Stone came a transmission from the Galactic Council. Earth Defense Forces are hereby granted complete authority over all galactic military assets for the duration of this crisis. Council Speaker Kelnaxx, Earth accepts this responsibility. All civilian populations should begin evacuation to prepared safe zones immediately. But the greatest surprise came when the approaching object finally entered communication range. Unknown vessels. This is Captain Janet Foster of the Earth colonization ship Endeavour. We have been traveling from the Andromeda Galaxy for approximately 300 years. Are we approaching inhabited space? The silence in the command center was absolute. Captain Foster, Admiral Stone replied slowly. This is Admiral Marcus Stone of the Earth Defense Force. Captain, you are approaching the Milky Way galaxy. When did you depart from Earth? Admiral, we departed from Earth Colony Designation New Geneva in the year 2387. Our mission was to establish contact with potential human settlements in neighboring galaxies. I stared at Admiral Stone in complete bewilderment. Sir, I said, are you telling me that humans have been conducting intergalactic colonization for centuries? Officer Velthin, humanity began planning for intergalactic expansion approximately 400 years ago. We established colonies in 7 neighboring galaxies as insurance against existential threats to our home galaxy. The scope of human civilization was beyond anything I had imagined. While we had been assuming they were newcomers to space travel, they had actually been building an intergalactic empire for centuries. How many humans are there? I asked. Current population estimates across all galaxies approach 47 billion individuals. Admiral Stone replied matter-of-factly. 47 billion humans. An intergalactic civilization that had been operating in secret while making first contact with our local galactic powers. Admiral Stone, Captain Foster's transmission continued. Our sensors indicate significant military activity in this galaxy. Are you currently engaged in warfare? Captain Foster, we recently concluded what local civilizations are calling the Third Galactic War. Earth forces have assumed peacekeeping responsibilities for this galaxy. Understood, Admiral. The Endeavour carries approximately 12 million colonists and terraforming equipment for establishing new settlements. Do you require additional population or resources? Additional population. 12 million additional humans, arriving just as the local galaxy had learned to fear and respect human capabilities. Captain Foster, proceed to Sector 7G and establish standard colonization protocols. Welcome home. As I watched the massive colony ship change course toward the designated sector, one thought dominated my mind. Commander Kelnaxx's slap had not simply started a war between species. It had awakened something that had been sleeping in the darkness between stars. "Admiral," I said, "when you first arrived in our galaxy, you already knew about the existence of human colonies in other galaxies, did you not?" "Officer Valthan, our initial reconnaissance mission was designed to assess whether this galaxy contained threats to established human territories. When we encountered the Zaltharian Empire's aggressive expansion, we determined that intervention was necessary." The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Humans had not been planning for war against unknown alien civilizations. They had been planning to protect an intergalactic empire that already existed. "You let us think you were newcomers to space travel," I said. "We allowed local civilizations to reach their own conclusions about our capabilities," Admiral Stone corrected. "It seemed prudent to assess local political structures before revealing the full extent of human civilization." And Commander Kelnaxx's slap provided legal justification for actions we were already prepared to take. His aggression simply determined the timeline. I looked around the command center, at the displays showing human fleets coordinating across the galaxy, at the reports of successful reconstruction efforts on dozens of worlds, at the evidence of an intergalactic civilization that had been hiding in plain sight. "Officer Valthan," Admiral Stone said, "you have served with distinction during the transition period. Earth Defense Forces would like to offer you a permanent commission as a full lieutenant in our Galactic Operations Division." A permanent commission. Not as a former enemy granted conditional employment, but as a full member of the most powerful military force in galactic history. "Sir, may I ask why you consider me worthy of such a position?" "Officer Valthan, you witnessed the collapse of one galactic order and helped establish another. You understand both the failures of the old system and the possibilities of the new one. That perspective is invaluable." I considered the offer, looking at the tactical displays showing a galaxy at peace for the first time in centuries. "Admiral, I accept your offer. When do I begin my new duties?" "You begin immediately, Lieutenant Valthan. Your first assignment is to assist in establishing diplomatic relations with the incoming Kathrani refugees and the new human colonists. Your experience with cultural integration will be essential." As I accepted my new rank insignia and responsibilities, I reflected on the events that had brought us to this point. 6 months ago, Commander Kelnaxx had slapped a human diplomat in an act of casual arrogance. He had assumed he was disciplining an inferior creature from a primitive species. Instead, he had awakened an intergalactic civilization that had been evaluating our galaxy for potential threats. The slap that was intended to demonstrate Zaltharian superiority had triggered the complete transformation of galactic civilization. And now, as I stood in what had once been the throne room of a conquered empire, wearing the uniform of the force that had conquered it, I understood the final irony. Commander Kelnaxx had gotten exactly what he wanted. He had demonstrated the superiority of the stronger species. He just had not realized which species that was. The Third Galactic War had indeed begun with a slap, but it had ended with 47 billion humans emerging from the darkness between stars to establish an intergalactic empire based on principles of justice, cooperation, and protection of the innocent. Commander Kelnaxx's head may have been the first casualty of the war, but his arrogance had been the last casualty of the old galactic order. And that, my friends, is how a single moment of supreme arrogance transformed the galaxy forever. The humans had been right about one thing, though. It really had been a mistake. Just not the kind of mistake Commander Kelnaxx had thought he was making.